Welcome to the kickoff for our eighth cohort, eighth annual program of the Canada Chicago Mentoring Program, or C2MP. I'm Stephen Collins. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the CEO of Matter. We're a healthcare technology incubator and innovation hub built on a belief that collaboration between entrepreneurs and industry leaders is the best way to develop healthcare solutions. Since 2015, right about the time we opened, we've worked with the Canadian Consulate in Chicago to help Canadian companies advance their solutions and enter the US market. It has been a wonderful relationship from the very beginning. One of the very first live events we held at Matter was the kickoff for our first C2MP cohort. It was before we actually opened our doors. We're grateful for the support over the years from the consulate. This year specifically from Consulate General David Usher, who we're happy to have with us today, as well as in particular Mali Benuelos and Laura Dalby, who help review the applications and rehearse with the teams and prepare for this event, as well as this entire program throughout the year. So the way this program works is that we surround each company with a team of advisors who help them advance from point A to point B over 6 months of coaching and guidance. The mentors are donating their time and their expertise to meet with each team monthly to help them advance their solutions. And so I just want to thank all of our mentors for their commitment over the years, and in advance for the support that you all are going to give to this year's cohort. This year, we selected 4 Canadian companies for the program. Each one will provide a 5-minute pitch for you all today. They will outline the problem they're solving, how they're solving it, talk about their competitive advantage, how they're doing thus far in their evolution, as well as what they hope to accomplish in the next 6 months. It's my pleasure now to introduce Dr. Steve Gould, who will be the MC of today's program. He is the consulting director for Polsky Science Ventures at the University of Chicago. He is an incredible mentor for, countless healthcare startup companies. Most importantly, he's a board member of Matter. And in a prior life, he was the chief of surgery at Michael Reese Hospital. And he also founded and led and took public a company called Northfield Labs, which was really, it was a biotech company on the forefront of new technology developing an artificial blood product. Steve has worked closely with the consulate on this program since the very beginning, and it's my pleasure to turn it over to him.
Thanks, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here today. Steve's given the history. I just want to get the numbers right. So as Steve said, we're now 7 years in for Matter, but the first C2M program occurred back then. So this is the 8th year we're doing this program. It's really remarkable. And it's only gotten better and better due to the amazing input from the folks at the Consulate General. There are new people that come periodically, and they just add to the strength of the team. In particular, I want to really acknowledge Molly, who worked with Sam and I to prep the teams. The teams have worked very hard. The presentations are very polished. You're going to enjoy them. I'm going to introduce our new Consul General in a moment, who I just met. He just arrived in Chicago in January, so this is truly a welcome for him. But I told him I was going to tell my annual beer story. So what am I talking about? So in the good old days, when we all got together in person, this was an evening event, and we had a fairly extravagant spread of beer, wine, and food. And so, as Steve said, this was really major event #1 at Matter, and we ordered what we thought. Well, we didn't pay attention that this was Canada, and lo and behold, we ran out of beer. Can you imagine that at an event sponsored by the Consulate General of Canada? So Roy Norton was the Consul General at the time, and Ray assured us that never again would we run out of beer at an event that was sort of sponsored by the consulate. So we haven't, we haven't had the chance to buy beer the last couple of years, but we look forward to doing that again. And as I introduce David, I told him beforehand, it's going to be on his budget going forward. So with that, I also want to acknowledge Laura Dalbu, Gian Rozan, Samir Ahmed, and everyone that's helped make this possible. And David, we haven't had a chance to get to know one another, but welcome to Chicago, welcome to CMP, and we look forward to hearing some words from you as we start this program. So David.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gould. And before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Indigenous people of the many lands that we find ourselves on today. I should confirm with you, Dr. Gould, that I'm not just here for the beer. I mean, this event is an exciting one. We have a long history of working closely with you. As you said, this is the 8th annual Chicago Canada Mentoring Program Pitch Day, and we're really pleased. And even though the consulate has a long history with C2MP, I'm new to Chicago, so I look forward to learning more about this, building on the momentum that we have over the last 7 years, and underscoring how grateful we are for the relationship that we built with Matter, who we understand is very well known and respected, and we think is the leading healthcare incubator in the region. And I'd also like to offer my congratulations to Can Immunize, High Ivy, Sensorial, and Views IQ, who've been selected from a pool of almost 30 Canadian applications by the PointB vetting committee. And this year's cohort is really breaking boundaries with their innovations in key healthcare challenges, including women's health, rapid testing, vaccination, and digital pathology. And given our emphasis on progressive and inclusive trade, trying to make sure that everybody can benefit from the benefits that trade brings, supporting SMEs, as well as those led by women and minorities, we're really pleased that this group is so representative in this program this year. You know, after 2 years into the pandemic, we're all aware of the challenges that the healthcare system is facing. I think we need to acknowledge the dedication and hard work of all of our frontline healthcare workers across the US and Canada, and also for the innovators in life sciences, because the work that you do is really meaningful as you try to find solutions that'll change healthcare delivery and improve patient outcomes going forward. So we recognize the work that these companies and partners like Matter are doing to advance the healthcare industry at such a critical time. At the consulate, we're really proud that our program with PointB MATTER is now recognized across Canada as a very effective model that promotes Canadian life science ventures and gives them the opportunity to build a professional network in Chicago and to refine their business strategy to more effectively grow in the US market. As we welcome the 4 Canadian ventures into this year's cohort, we encourage you to connect with Matter's expert resources, leverage the connections we have at the consulate with the local ecosystem, and continue to drive cross-border opportunities across the spectrums of innovation, R&D, and commercial functions. And of course, even though we're kicking off the program virtually today, we'll be drinking virtual beer. We look, of course, to welcoming you in Chicago when you can come here and when travel guidance permits. You know, we believe this collaboration today will play an even stronger role as our countries both look to build resilient economies in the post-pandemic world. And we're excited at the consulate to play a part of it, and we know you are as well. And as Dr. Gould mentioned, and Steve, thank you to the mentors who are bringing your knowledge and dedication to the Canadian companies and our C2MP program over the years. Again, thank you for the opportunity to say a few words. And as always, thank you to PointB and Matter for your partnership. With that, let's get right into the pitch presentations from our 4 Canadian ventures, which is, of course, the main event we're all here for. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We appreciate your remarks. And again, welcome Chicago. We look forward to being in person soon.
Thank you.
So as we kick off, let me just review the background and sort of the rules of engagement for today. I also want to thank the mentors. The process actually starts in the fall with selection of the 4 participants today. So applications come in, again, between the team at the consulate and Sam. There's a review process. Many of our loyal mentors participate in the evaluation. It's a very objective score. score-driven process that resulted in the 4 outstanding companies we have today. I told you about the hard work that the teams put in. We do go through this 5-slide, 5-minute presentation. It's actually harder to prepare a 5-minute talk than it is a 1-hour talk. And the reason we do that, we've learned that it really sets up for a lively and engaging 10-minute Q&A session, which to me is the most important element of today's program. So with that in mind, as Steve said, raise your hand in the chat room, or if you want to put a question in chat, we'll go through them. And here's where I tell both sides. I tell the audience, when you ask a question, keep it short. We don't want to lecture. I'd rather have 10 questions and 10 answers than one lecture. And I tell the folks from each of the companies, give your answers in a concise manner also. This is where we really tease out all of the important information. Second point I want to make is we look for teams of ideally 5 mentors per team. We've already picked the lead mentor. They've had meetings. And we're looking to find people. There's an ask on each slide with the experience they're looking for. So we urge you to sign up. If you like all 4 for the mentors, sign up for all 4. We'll only put you on one team, but tell us everyone you're interested in and prioritize them. Sam will talk about how to do that at the end. We won't overwork you. You'll work hard enough with one team. So those are the ground rules. We do pay attention to the clock. It's 5 minutes. I give them a little extra time, and they're all well prepared. So I think with that, we're ready to go. According to the program, Can Immunize is first up today, and Alicia St. Hill is our presenter. So here we go.
Thank you so much. So my name is Alicia St. Hill. I'm Vice President of Business Development for Can Immunize. I want to start by asking you a question. How many of you think that you are up to date? Oh, sorry. There we go. How many of you think that you're up to date with your eligible vaccines? Well, the likelihood is that most of us are not. Our population is generally suboptimally vaccinated. And because of that, we're missing out on key protections from vaccine preventable diseases. And we're actually seeing a resurgence of vaccine preventable diseases like measles, mumps, and in polio in some parts of the world. And we're recognizing this on the precipice of what can only be considered a vaccine revolution. Investments in mRNA and other vaccine technologies mean that we have revolutionized how we're able to code the body to prevent more infectious diseases, mental health conditions, cancers, and even our biggest killer, heart disease. And this pandemic has highlighted that we do not have the tools. We don't have the tools to engage and educate, to reduce vaccine hesitancy and build awareness, to help consumers know how, where, and when to access vaccines, and tools that monitor vaccine coverage and safety of vaccines in a post-market surveillance, especially of novel and new vaccines. We at Can Immunize believe we urgently need modern digital solutions that will improve the uptake of vaccine protection. And that's where Can Immunize comes in. We offer a technology platform and solution ecosystem that uniquely addresses many of the pain points in the vaccine coverage challenge and reaches specific stakeholders in that challenge. I want to introduce to you 3 of our solutions on this platform. Our internationally recognized Can Immunize public app links consumers to easy to understand information on eligible vaccines and allows them to track their own vaccine doses. The in-app timely reminders have been shown to increase vaccine coverage by up to 20%. Targeted to pharmacies, public health departments, school vaccine programs, Clinic Flow is our modular, easy to integrate end-to-end solution that simplifies online scheduling, the collection of consent and medical questionnaires, documentation, surveillance, and even distribution of smart health card receipts for vaccination. And during this pandemic, we know that employers and insurers were quick to recognize the benefits of vaccine-protected employees on their bottom line. Shield, our most recent solution, is a scalable cloud-based solution that is intelligent and offers secure ways to track and enforce vaccination policy. But just why are we the ideal solution partner? Well, we have a track record of successful, meaningful impact. Developing Clinic Flow in collaboration with the province of Nova Scotia, we were able to easily allow that population to access COVID-19 vaccines for their entire population, and they now boast the third highest vaccination rates in the country. And by linking all vaccinators, long-term care homes, pharmacies, public health units, and existing population directories, we were able to provide them with strong analytics and tools to reach those populations in need and centralize their booking systems. Canadian news outlets touted our solutions as some of the easiest to use to deliver 1.9 million doses to people of Nova Scotia. And we're ahead of the curve with purpose-built solutions, led by our CEO, Dr. Kumanen Wilson, an international expert in immunization science and population health. We are kept looking forward on the technology needs specific to improve vaccination use. We're not tweaking existing solutions, but rather we are building and developing solutions around vaccine science. And for that, Can Immunize has received both domestic and international accolades and recognition. Having incorporated as a private company in 2018, we've also operated exclusively through our licensing, research, and grant revenues, and we experienced exponential growth in 2021. Our revenues more than tripled, and we're targeting $7 million in revenue for our 2022 year, focused on two solutions in particular. For government programs like Medicaid and Medicare that are working hard to overcome the impact of socioeconomic factors on health outcomes and recognize the ROI of investing in preventive health, these modules of our clinic flow solution can be integrated with their managed care programs and could significantly improve both childhood and adult immunization rates. And our Shield solution, which is scalable and commercially available now, can be integrated immediately for employers who want to encourage higher rates of vaccination and enforce their COVID-19 policies, with soon flu and other adult immunizations to come. But we need your help in getting there. We are in a once in a generation opportunity to capture a market that's got renewed value and interest in vaccine protection. But we want to tailor our US go-to-market strategy on those pain points are specific and unique to the American public health delivery system. We hope that there are many mentors among you who would like to advise us on how to reach out to organizations and programs that are ready to use innovative tools to improve vaccination coverage, including insurers, public health departments, and state-based programs, employers, and hospital systems. And lastly, with Can Immunize Shield, we are market ready and seeking to optimize what our marketing and brand awareness strategy should be to bring this solution to American employers. We hope that you're interested in joining this journey and improve the use of what can be called the greatest life-saving innovation in medical history. I look forward to your questions.
Thanks, Alicia. That was extremely well done. So I'm going to start by poking a little fun at Alicia because she worked so hard. So in our prep calls, everybody had the instructions, 5 slides, 5 minutes. So we came to our first call with Alicia and she went through her talk and there were a few additional slides. And Sam, our industrious timekeeper, told her, great talk. It was 11 and a half minutes long. So Alicia has got a great attitude, very coachable, as we say. And I hope you all enjoyed the crisp, focused presentation as much as I did. Very well done, Alicia.
Thank you.
So let's open this up for questions. Let's see. Am I looking for reactions? Is that where I see the raised hands or participants? I'm trying to get oriented here.
Raised hands should be in participants.
Okay.
Not seeing any just yet.
Okay. Anything in the chat room yet? If not, I'll jump in. So we enjoyed in the prep session learning about this. I think what Alicia covered is some of the differences between Canada and the United States. So the idea of documentation and record keeping for a number of reasons is very much at the forefront. Matter was one of the first organizations that instituted a requirement to demonstrate vaccination and only recently added the requirement for a booster. Tell us a little how you did that with the government. I mean, I remember telling you trying to do that here at the national, the state, the region, or the city level is impossible. How did you actually make that happen at the government level?
So a great question. Can Immunize has been around for quite some time. And in fact, our investment in the Canadian vaccine catalog meant that we were a known entity amongst those who were interested in mass vaccination. So in December 2020, before we even had access to the vaccine, the government of Nova Scotia approached us because we'd started a project actually with one of the hospitals in the Ottawa area, long-term care facility and hospital in complex continuing care, in developing a tool that helped track vaccination records. So they reached out to us, and really through co-development, we worked together to identify solutions that would get us to central booking. We recognize that making people go to multiple places to get access to the vaccine might not be ideal, especially if you can't track or don't have surveillance over your entire population. So really, they had a great vision, and we had great technology and understanding the vaccine science, and kept that evolution going. I think it's a very iterative process. We learned a lot along the way, but we had that credibility within the public health space to start, and then that ground footwork for our platform across the country already.
Great. There's a question in the chat room from Richard Marrett. It's, I'm sorry. Here's the first one. It's from Mark Lessam. Hi, Mark. I believe marketing and branding was one ask. What is the current competitive landscape, and how does management currently plan to brand? Good question.
Yeah, so we purchased, so Can Immunize is a term, and even our brand is very Canadian. So we're looking at, how do we kind of channel that to be more American focused, or perhaps more international interest. Our targets so far in terms of market segments have been those in the sectors related to utilities, supplying healthcare, those that can't turn their lights off, especially with Can Immunize Shield, because they want to be able to track vaccinations and reduce that sick time at work. So our targets have been to reach out to associations and have conversations, because our broad-based marketing strategy of just hoping that advertising will bring it in doesn't work, because that's not the way people are making those decisions, at least not in Canada. And then in terms of our the rest of our marketing, so marketing Can Immunize as a brand and our solution platform, we actually want to know where to focus, because I think from a clinic flow or working with government programs, I believe those are very specific opportunities to really reach out to. And I think we have to kind of gauge that on a one-on-one basis as to how we would within a given state market to the Medicaid program, or for example, Medicare program who might be interested in using our technology.
Okay, that's actually, that question is a good segue to the next question, which comes from Richard Marrett. It says, based on your initial discussions, do you see the large EMR providers, Epic, Cerner, as partners or competitors to your solution? In a sense that relates to the branding. So how are you going to really grab market share and establish your presence? I think that's the focus here.
Yeah, so we believe that the intelligence around vaccine tracking, surveillance, identifying eligibility, we have to work with the EMR vendors. So what we're actually, one of the solutions and one part of our platform is to develop a clinical decision support hook. So that's very common within the Epic space to, have particular specialty technology hooks within the tool. So perhaps our solution is letting you know who's eligible for vaccine next, when their last dose was, developing the scheduler and the functionality to call them back, in integrating, easy to understand information right within the EMR. So we don't see them as a competitor. We believe that there are parts of our platform that can be leveraged to work together with them. We know that Epic has a huge market share and is growing both sides of the border, actually. And so when it comes to vaccinators, we don't see that as a competitor. We do have competitors, though, in Can Immunize Shield. There are businesses that popped up just to track vaccinations for employers. And we kind of differentiate ourselves because that solution with just catching 2 doses might not be enough. You need to know about waning immunity. We need to capture booster doses. And perhaps you're even looking at other types of vaccines within the workplace. So that's how we differentiate ourselves. We aren't a pop-up around vaccine, and we bring the vaccine science and that insight to your workplace. Yeah.
So, these are a number of the things we talked about during our sessions. I mean, I find this very interesting. It should be notable to everybody that Can Immunize is actually remarkably different than most of the companies we've seen in the old SIM program or the PointB or even the C2MP. And they've been around for a number of years. They've never raised money. And their revenue is in the millions. And yet what they're doing is really at the forefront. So it's a startup in that regard. And I think trying to make the transition from Canada to here is a challenge. So we're welcome to have them. The audience seems bashful. We have one hand raised, Bill Manganaro. Bill, ask your question. And then Bill Saxelby is in the chat, but I'd love you folks to ask your question directly. So after the first bill, I'll call on the second bill. So Bill Manganaro.
Thanks, Stephen. And Alicia, great presentation. I was having a little bit of audio trouble, so forgive me if I may have missed something. I kind of have two. The first is regarding overcoming vaccine hesitancy, and how do you deal with the fact that so much of the hesitancy really is people seeking things that affirm their confirmation bias. The second is regarding social determinants, given this kind of delivery, how we get it into the pharmacy deserts and so forth, where people are having trouble getting to vaccines.
So on your first, to answer your first question, sorry, Bill, you had asked about, sorry, Bill, can you restate your first question?
I'm sorry, I just popped off video and audio. It was about, how you're approaching the vaccine hesitancy aspect.
Thank you. Yes.
Because a lot of people don't want information that doesn't go along with their confirmation bias.
Yeah, so a lot of it is actually making sure that we have a multi-pronged approach. So when working with the province of Nova Scotia, for example, where you see we have almost 90% coverage, partly it's making sure that tools are easy to use. We got some hesitancy out of the way by not having the excuse that it's been hard to access the vaccine. And we think the number of people who are truly anti-vax or completely vaccine hesitant is actually quite low. There are a lot of other barriers in the way of getting a vaccine. Secondly, if you think of our company as an entire approach, working with employers helped actually close the gap quite a bit. So for those for whom vaccine coverage was not considered to be a priority for them, when your employer comes in and shows that they care and this is important, and you are in that circle of influence within the workplace, we saw that also with one of our big city clients who has 20,000 employees. We saw the number significantly decrease and a lot of new vaccines being administered as the tool was rolled out. And then making things easy to access and easy to use. So our Can Immunize Public app, the education level, we even created some comic books for kids and embedded those tools within the app so that we can make it approachable and understandable as to why a child might be getting a very painful vaccine shot. So a number of ways to address that. In terms of accessing, vaccine deserts, so working together with public health, clinic flow actually is tablet-based. So it means that vaccinators don't have to be in fixed locations and can move around. And knowing where you have lower levels of coverage and working with public health departments to identify this is an area we need to set up a child catch-up clinic, a COVID-19 vaccine clinic, our tools allow them to do that and pop up those events wherever they need. So it's another way that we're able to help reach people where they need to be reached, not necessarily in a fixed situation where there may not be a pharmacy, to your point.
Great. So we got a bunch of questions. We'll take one more. I'm going to call on Pete Maslowski. Pete, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, I'll ask it. Sorry, a little slow on the mute button here. Hi, Pete Maslowski. Just curious, what types of opportunities might there be with vaccine manufacturers?
Great. So vaccine manufacturers have been of recent, a couple, post-market surveillance, and also marketing and reaching out to parents. So our Can Immunize Public app has a scheduler built in. I mean, a lot of parents actually download the app within days of their child being born because hospitals are kind of providing that information to them as after birth. And so vaccine manufacturers are very interested in getting tools in the hands of the population at large, not only to make them aware of vaccines, but also to remind them to finish them. So people will start their vaccine series, for example, Shingrix, but not get their second dose. And so we're actually working with some large manufacturers in Canada to help integrate those tools and their branding, and in particular, vaccines that are not necessarily publicly funded vaccines into our tools, so we can raise awareness of things like in Canada, for example, MenB is not on schedule. So big manufacturers are interested in these available vaccines, eligible vaccines, but that don't have a public health coverage component to them. And I think that will be true in the US, even for vaccines that would be covered under, let's say, Part D in Medicare, but not necessarily covered under Part B.
Great. All right. Well, thanks, Alicia. Very, very well done. Thanks, mentors. I hope you're all getting warmed up. We can do either way. Some people are putting in the chat, some are raising their hand. I'd like you all to engage directly if you're comfortable. It's your call. So make notes to yourself if you're interested in signing up for this team. Again, I'll keep telling you, we'll only put you on one team. So anything you're interested in, mark it down and prioritize it. Okay, we're off to a great start. The second presentation is Hi, Ivy. And we're going to hear from Rachel Bartholomew. Rachel?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Rachel Bartholomew, and I am the CEO and founder of Hi Ivy Health. So when I was diagnosed with cervical cancer at the age of 28 years old, I found out that I was going to need surgery and radiation that was directly going to impact my pelvic health for the rest of my life. And I'm not alone. 1 in 3 women are dealing with non-curable pelvic health-related illnesses that all directly impact their quality of life, their day-to-day activities, and overall well-being. The only standard of care option for treatment at home are these painful and ineffective static dilators, which actually haven't been upgraded since 1938. These lack of options, follow-up by doctors, and concrete data on aftercare are leading to further permanent, non-curable symptoms costing our healthcare system over $90 billion in North America. This is why we've created Hi Ivy Health. We create an all-in-one pelvic rehab system for women to help treat, monitor, and eventually predict pelvic health-related illnesses and their symptoms. Our first products include a multi-therapy vaginal one, providing thermal, lubrication, and dilation therapy, which is used in combination with biosensors, collecting the first quantifiable data set on the pelvic floor. And this is tracked using our patient mobile app and our software portal for clinicians. This data helps patients see their progress in real time, and our software allows doctors and therapists to see the effectiveness of their treatment plans, predict complications, and make adaptive treatment plan changes in real time. In our early testing, our patients see a therapeutic impact of a decrease in vaginal dryness, pelvic pain, and vaginal stenosis while improving symptoms of incontinence. For OBGYNs, we've reduced time to clinical outcomes and reduced readmission and ER visits. And for the pelvic floor therapists, we improve access to their care through virtual monitoring and provide new revenue opportunities through device resale and virtual therapy sessions. We sell the device to patients for $450 and a subscription to clinics for $99 per month per therapist, with current established CPT codes reimbursable for the therapist time as well as the device. We're the only remote monitoring device on the market for pelvic floor, collecting multiple data sets and connecting patients to their doctors virtually. We're just under 2 years old, and we've just filed our utility patents internationally and in the US. We've secured multiple clinical studies. We have over 600 patients and 65 clinicians in focus groups. And we've raised a total of $1.9 million in non-dilutive and private pre-seed funding. We just recently secured our manufacturers in Canada, and we've developed market partnerships in over 9 different global markets for expansion. We've also been named one of the top 5 global trendsetters in women's health out of 1,500 global femtech companies. Our focus for 2022 is to get the device through our manufacturability, all of the required safety testing and certifications, and our Health Canada approvals for investigational use to get our device into the the phase 2 studies with McMaster University and Grand River Cancer Center. Our goal is to approach the FDA and Health Canada for full regulatory approvals as a Class 2 device towards the end of 2022 for a controlled commercial launch of our system in Ontario for early 2023. And this will help work out the deployment of the system for a full US launch in mid-2023. For the C2MP MATTER program, we'd like to focus on our FDA regulatory strategy as we're currently prepping for a pre-sub meeting in order to figure out if we should pursue a 510K under multiple predicates or a de novo first strategy. We would also like to explore building pilot projects with local OBGYNs for testing the deployment of the system into a US hospital setting. And we'd also like to plan for a controlled launch within the US for the therapist and patient market. Finally, we have a target researcher we'd like a connection to at the University of Chicago to approach for potential clinical trial and work as a key opinion leader for high IV. Thank you for your time today and helping us make women happier and healthier down there and everywhere. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Rachel. Nice job. Nice job. It's always wonderful to see somebody that takes a personal experience and goes on to find a way to solve a problem and do better for all of us. So thanks for that and for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's see, I'm looking, any hands up or any questions? I'm looking here.
Mark Minkus has submitted one in the chat.
Great. Mark, you want to ask?
Yeah, I'm just curious, Rachel. I saw the lubricant with the
Yes.
device, and I'm wondering, does that move you from a traditional device to what we call a combination product?
Yes, for sure. So it does. We are actually going to market first without the lubrication system. So that is scheduled for a V2 of the product. We have a little bit more testing we have to do in terms of bacteria and sanitization. So that's something that's coming down the pipeline regardless.
Okay, thank you. I think that'll make it a little more complicated to review. Okay.
100%. Yes.
Great. Kaylee Arduini.
Hi there. Curious, what a great product solving such a critical need in women's health. Curious, as you think about, your go-to market strategy in the U.S., are you looking for health system partners? I know you mentioned the U of C research connection. Are you looking for others? Kind of what are you hoping to find in terms of partners in the U.S. space?
100%. So we have 2 trials already set up in Canada. They are phase 1 feasibilities. So I'm hoping to start building out a pipeline for RCTs. So definitely looking for partnerships there, as well as just across the border. Currently, we have for next year a trial with PVOL for postpartum women that's in development right now. And we're actually looking for a site to secure in the US. We have one in Canada that stepped forward, but still trying to figure out who that US partner could be. So open to all and any suggestions.
Great. So when you talk about your regulatory strategy, we touched on this in one of our prep calls. How are you thinking about what claims you want to make? Because that's going to guide your regulatory strategy.
Yeah, it's a tough one right now because this industry has very few and far between applications that have been made through the FDA for it. And so the claims that are currently out there, if we were to go through a predicate strategy for the 510K, has a focus on what is called vaginismus and vulvodynia. It's still an $8 million or 8 million patient market size in North America. So it's still quite significant, really focusing on the stretch of the muscles, the training of the muscles, and then the breakdown of the stenosis. So it's a good market. It's a good start. I think what we're trying to see is, do we have a de novo strategy with our current trials in place? Are they powered enough? Can we get the FDA to help us with that and potentially expand the use to other diagnosis targets?
Yeah. And I'd like you to tease out a little more of the business model. I'm still not entirely clear. you talked about CPT codes, but
Yeah.
who do you think is going to be paying for this? So that there's the person that orders it, there's a person that uses it, and the person that pays for it. Go through those for us.
Yeah, so the device is paid for by the patient themselves because we don't want them reusing this device. This is a personal device that they would use on their own. So the patient does pay that. The current CPT codes are not great on the device side. It is under durable medical equipment. It covers about $91. So it's not that great. I'd love to work on reimbursement and what that could look like for further expanded for the device side. And then the therapist would pay $99 per month for a subscription to the software side. They have codes already established as well as new RPM codes that have come out that would cover their time to set up the device with the patient, monitor the patient remotely, as well as have the sessions with the patient with the device. So there's quite a significant support on the therapist side to get that reimbursement back for their time spent on the product.
Great. So again, some of the things we talked about in prep, but we have at least one other Matter company that is very focused on pelvic health in general, but focusing on women at the outset, but it goes more broadly than that. But I think this interaction between the user and the patient having to pay becomes challenging because $91 in itself is not a trivial number for many people, and that's not going to allow you to build a business the way you want. So it circles back to what the indication is, what the benefit is, and the whole regulatory strategy. So,
100%.
I think that's where a team of mentors can be very helpful to you.
100%.
Jackie Mejia, if I'm pronouncing, do you want to ask your question, Jackie?
Not a question, Steve, so I don't want to take up too much time. Just wanted to talk about Femtim Focus. Rachel, I hope you're aware of the community. I think it would be great for you.
Yeah, I've been on their podcast already, and Brittany is looking to invest in our next round. So,
okay, great, thanks. What else? Anybody else out there? So let's keep going then, Rachel. So the trial, tell us more about the trials that are ongoing. Are they set up with specific endpoints, or are these more observational studies right now?
yeah, so they have endpoints. The first with McMaster is a target population of endometriosis patients. It's 20 patients with early efficacy information that we're looking at. So we are taking blood, doing ultrasound, doing inflammatory marker analysis with a primary endpoint on the change in chronic pelvic pain on the VAS scale, with a number of quality of life, ER visits, rescue medication, secondary endpoints. The second trial is with the Grand River Cancer Center, and that essentially is also looking at the change in pain as well as reduction in vaginal stenosis, and then generalized quality of life studies as well.
So with that sample size, these are really observational trials, right?
Yes, early studies, yeah.
And then the goal is to help lay out what maybe the product development pathway to come to market, to incorporate both the regulatory and the reimbursement. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Harold Stelter, you want to ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Steve, I couldn't figure out how to raise my hand. But, as I'm thinking about this, it reminds me a lot of Whoop, and trying to create muscle memory and automation. I have no idea how this space works, to be honest with you, but it dawns on me that, if you're already paying for this, and there might be, I don't even know how long you'd use it, whether it's 6 months, 12 months, or years, or forever, that you couldn't come up with some way of being able to introduce this more as a consumer product good, going through the easiest pathway possible, or getting a CE market on it, and then having kind of a digital service subscription model tied to it. So maybe you could teach me a little bit about those sides of the business.
Yeah, we don't have enough time to go into the depths of it. It's something I've struggled with, honestly. I made the decision to not focus on the digital consumer side. That's what this market has largely focused on, and a lot of bogus technology has unfortunately gotten through. So I really focus on med device first, and trying to figure out how valuable the data is and what can we use it for. We're already starting to see really interesting correlations come from it. So what does that look like? We become a data company at the end of the day, but putting clinical evidence behind that data rather than just random numbers that don't really mean anything.
All right, great, good question, Harold. Thanks. So I think we're ready to move on. Thanks, everyone. Sam, keep putting in the chat room. If there are any questions that don't get answered, she will get them answered for you. Probably, I don't know how she's going to do that, whether it's one-on-one or for everyone, but she'll tell us at the end. Great. Okay. We're right on schedule. We're ready for sensorial, be presented by Puya Saberi. Puya?
Thanks to Steve. It was a great presentation by Alicia and Rachel. Congratulations, guys. All right, let's get it started. Can everyone see my screen? Okay. All right. Okay, I'll get started. So my name is Piyush Saberi. I'm the CEO and a co-founder at Sensorial. We are a medtech startup spin-off McGill University in Montreal, Canada. And our vision is to build the next generation of point-of-care diagnostics at the instrument-free. So COVID-19 has shown us the importance of the point-of-care diagnostic test. There's been many of them going around and adding a lot of value for a lot of people. In today's world, what we have learned is that we need to get deeper insight into patients' health, meaning that we need to solve complex problems in challenging situations. Right now, this is done using complicated instruments that they rely on mechanical components, moving parts, devices such as Abbott's iStat to the Onyx Abioscope. They all rely on the analyzer or the instrument per se. So this instrument or mechanical part that's doing the analysis of these complex biological assays has increased the upfront cost, as well as not only having the limited throughput, meaning that you can do one test at a time, you'll also need trained personnel, and the turnaround time is pretty high. So as a result, the adoption has been pretty low. We've talked to many doctors, and what we've learned is that there is a strong need for a simple, elegant solution, something that's instrument-free and high performance. So over 10 years of R&D, inspired by the capillary forces by nature, we have developed a unique technology from my co-founder's PhD that allows us to automate and miniaturize a lot of biological assays. In this video, we're demonstrating the different steps for an RPA test for a molecular testing application. Our technology allows us to modify the geometry of the channels as well as the surface energy, and we have designed modules or design rules that can be put together similar to electrical circuits analogy to do a lot of complicated procedures. We can do mixing of the fluids. As you can see, the yellow and the blue dyes are mixing at different ratios. We can start and stop the flow. We can do mixing and many more. So all in all, we believe that our technology has a huge potential. But what we wanted to focus on, first building our first platform, measuring post-response low abundance proteins from blood. Our first prototype would measure 5 protein biomarkers at an LOD above about 100 picogram per ml. And currently we are integrating an electrochemical sensor into our platform, allowing us to go into femtomolar levels as well as transmitting the results wirelessly. Ultimately, our vision is to integrate the whole thing on an easy-to-use dermal patch where the blood is collected and analyzed, and the result can be transmitted to a smartphone or a handheld analyzer. For our first platform, we are investigating multiple applications. Our primary application is to differentiate bacterial and viral infection for respiratory infections. So by looking at protein biomarkers such as C-reactive protein or calcitonin, and within 15 minutes, we want to answer the question whether infection is bacterial or not. We have studied 700 patient data in our phase 1 project with Health Canada and a European partner, and we've built a machine learning layer that allowed us to show that we can reach over 90% sensitivity and specificity with 4 protein biomarkers. We can also help physicians answer a lot of side questions, not only to prescribe antibiotic or not and reduce the burden of antibiotic resistance, but also track the severity of the disease as well as the ultimate duration of antibiotic therapy. Overall, we started our journey from McGill University, where our IP was born. We further matured our technology and we built the first blood test that was ever done in space in 2019 with the Canadian Space Agency. Since then, we've been working with Health Canada to customize our platform for the first application. Currently, we are developing the next iteration of our prototype and as well as doing some clinical validation with our partners in Quebec and Ontario. We're also planning to do a fundraising round in 2022 that to expand our use cases and unlock the potential of other products that we have in our pipeline. So all in all, we have a unique technology. We're currently working on the next iteration of our platform. We have grant funding in place and 12 months of runway. During the MATTER program, we are looking for the business validation of our use cases, starting with the bacterial viral, as well as the other ones such as traumatic brain injury and the cardiac panel that we have. We're also looking to receive strategic guidance on our development plan. And we're also looking to work with clinicians and collaborators that can help us reach to the point that we can do the FDA approval. And lastly, we are also hoping to gear up for a fundraising round later this year. Thank you, everyone. Be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks, Puya. So Puya is another one that worked very hard. We had a number of sessions. This is really interesting technology. There was a lot to tell, and he's also a good listener and work. So the story here is to give you an overview of his technology, summary of what their first approach is, and kind of lay out some of the subsequent development. But his ask on the last slide are quite clear. It's sort of to validate, think about the clinical and developmental strategy, to at least get out in the market and go forward. So I would think this would be of interest to lots of folks in the audience. So let's see. So the first question, Jackie.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. Great presentation. Can you just tell us maybe a little bit more about the types of samples that you used so far in your validation studies? Are they synthetic samples that are spiked, or are they clinical samples, saliva samples, just to learn a little bit more about the stage of development?
Yeah, for sure. So we've worked with a variety of samples. We previously worked with urine and saliva as well. They are both compatible with our capillary flows during the prototypes. Our primary focus is plasma, human plasma, and we have used real samples. Like astronaut David Saint-Jacques, who tested our platform in space, used his own blood. So he pricked his own finger and used the blood. For our internal developments, we use often sheep serum and human serum just for the iterations and prototype.
Great, thanks. Puya, maybe stop your screen sharing so we can get a gallery view. So Zoe Kwan asked a question. Zoe, I'm gonna edit your question a little. Zoe asked, what are the initial tests you are trying? And I was gonna say, tell us the thing we talked about. So just to summarize again, the initial goal is to distinguish bacterial from viral infection at the point of care. I think her question is, what specifically are you measuring? How valid are those markers, if you will, to make that distinction? And what treatment decisions will come from that? That's sort of an expanded version. Thanks, Zoe, for the question.
You said it better than I could ever do, Steve.
Yeah, thank you so much, Zoe, and thanks to Steve for the comments. So our primary application is that we want to, well, for our first platform, we want to focus on immune response or post-response proteins. Those are typically proteins that are expressed from the immunity system of the host with respect to an external pathogen or an infection. Very common ones that are well known and well used in clinical settings, such as C-reactive protein or procalcitonin. These biomarkers have been expressed at different concentration levels when there is a viral infection as compared to a bacterial one. So what we have built is we have built a machine learning layer that allows us, by looking at how these biomarkers go up and down, we can predict the probable, or I would say in statistical term, the likelihood of a bacterial infection, where compared to other possibilities such as co-infection or viral infections. So this is our primary use case. Looking at the host response proteins, we can look at other things such as the severity of traumatic brain injury, or even ruling out cardiac infection. So those are other applications that we also have in our pipeline.
Great.
Did I answer the question?
Zoe, you want to follow
Yes,
up?
thank you. That's very good. It was, I think it was, the question is, my concern is clinicians hate anything that they can't actually act on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why I was concerned.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually at one time the startup I worked with was actually a point of care rapid diagnostic for bloodborne infectious diseases. So I'm very interested in this area.
Oh, great. Well, welcome to the mentor team, Zoe. Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Mark Minkus, this is a quick one. I'll read it. What size and how long is the needle in the device in the patient arm? So tell them a little more about what the sort of next iteration for you.
Yeah, I can maybe show a quick video on how it works. So
let's not do a video.
Okay, sounds good. So it's gonna be so in our final iteration, we are right now investigating different dermal patches that would be almost pain-free. They're much easier than finger prick that we have previously worked for a space product. I would, to give an example, it would be like a patch the size of like maybe a few centimeters that would be installed on the arm, very similar to glucose monitoring devices. But we would also can measure capillary blood, whereas they're focusing on interstitial fluid right now. So that's roughly the level of size and the development. So in terms of the stage that we are at, we have the different components in-house that we are developing, but also with one of our partners. And we are at the stage that we are integrating everything together.
Okay. There's a short question from Henry Alder. Looking longer term, who's going to purchase your product again on the business end?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we see in the longer term that we are going through the home use and personalized health medicine route. So there's a lot of like new biowearable devices such as Abbott's Lingo concept that recently was announced in January. It's similar to a Fitbit device or a BioTracker. Our devices are disposable tests that can be used for anyone who wants to monitor their health, as well as in combination of telemedicine, remote medicine, or even at the pharmacies. So that's the general approach that we're going about.
So do you know enough yet as to have an opinion of what you think the pricing might be?
Yeah, so in terms of the price point, we are pretty low cost. The microfluidic side is about $1 or so for reagents, and another $1 for the sensor. So overall, it would be less than $5 for the cost. And so the final prototype, we are aiming to reach the market for a consumer price of under $20.
So this will be like the rapid antigen COVID tests that are in short supply these days.
Exactly, yes.
Okay. Again, the question that I think is going to be important is what data will need to be generated to support the claims and to get the consumers to actually pay that. It may be a little different than the fear of a COVID pandemic, but those are all things that we'll sort through. Harold, you want to ask another question?
Certainly. I've been spending a lot of time working with military development programs, and I know this is square in their interest as they move the field medicine to make it something really simple, really cheap, and they can do it on site. This notion of being able to identify whether it's a viral, what pathogen is really interesting to them, particularly if you can turn this around, within, it looks like you can do it within a couple of minutes. Have you done that? And if not, I'd encourage you to.
That's a very interesting point. We've been talking to some military partners in Canadian side, but however, we should probably talk to more people. We'd be happy to continue this discussion like off this channel as well.
Well, you said something earlier about traumatic brain injury, Puya?
Yes.
Yeah, so Harold's a guy to talk to about that. He's got his own company in that area, so he'll either join your team or you and he will continue the conversation after that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Great. We have time for one more question. Anybody else want to raise their hand? Ask something? If not, okay. Well, thanks Puya. Thanks mentors again. We're doing great on the schedule. We're ready for the last presentation today, Views IQ, and Kenny too is going to present to us.
Perfect. Thanks, Steve. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Kenny Toe. I'm the CEO of Views IQ. And I'm going to tell you about our story in meeting the unmet need in pathology, the last medical field to go digital. And there really truly is a large and growing need for access to pathology. There's fewer and fewer pathologists graduating every year, but then also more that are retiring. And at the same time, the diagnostic workload per pathologist is increasing to the tune of almost 42%. This is leading to a shortage in the diagnosing of diseases. And one potential area to address this is by way of artificial intelligence. It's a growing and large market, and we know the pathologists themselves are very receptive to the use of this technology. Around 75% of pathologists around the world are interested in adopting AI as another tool within their diagnostic tool belt. So our solution for this is to increase pathologist efficiency using AI for clinical decision support. By way of a licensing agreement that we have with Dartmouth, which is now flourishing into a full-blown partnership, we've licensed out over 10 different AI algorithms across a number of different disease types, primarily within cancers. We've started prioritizing these based on opportunity within a pipeline, the first of which is around AI for colorectal cancer risk surveillance. Almost 2,000 slides have been tested, producing a 93% accuracy, and this has been tested across 24 medical centers throughout the US. Next, within this pipeline is an AI algorithm for lung cancer detection, classification, and diagnosis, again, producing a high degree of accuracy. And as I mentioned, we have a number of other AI algorithms for various other disease types within our pipeline. Now, to that end, we do have across looking at the market, the most comprehensive AI pipeline, and specifically in disease areas with few or in some cases no competitors. You can see on the left within breast and prostate, there certainly are a number of competitors in that space. But on the right side of the screen with the brighter blue bubbles where we have algorithms, there's 2, 3, and in some cases 0 competitors. So we really truly think there's a blue ocean opportunity for us in this case. When we think about the path forward, it's really around launching of these FDA-approved AI products for clinical decision support. To date, we've developed out a management team with core expertise spanning a number of functional domains, from entrepreneurship, clinical pathology, sales, AI development, and commercialization. We've completed that deal with Dartmouth, as I mentioned, and established proof of concept studies and published throughout a number of prominent journals. Moving forward, we will be raising a financing to support a lot of the development work, first of which is really wrapping around a image viewer, so a graphical user interface around these AI products that allows customers to interact with them. And then submitting, first of which with our colorectal cancer algorithm for a 510K regulatory approval, and identifying early adopter hospitals to be able to partner with this for. Subsequently, we then intend to do the same thing with lung and so on and so forth with the different cancer types. Our partners, just to mention briefly, include Dartmouth, UCLA, and University of Illinois, Chicago. Finally, what are we seeking by way of this program? Of course, because there is a heavy emphasis on the regulatory side, it's really developing out that strategy for that piece. Secondly, being able to identify key opinion leaders and early adopter hospitals that will work part and parcel with us on adoption. And then 3 and 4 are really around that commercial strategy, product market fit, sales strategy, and pricing reimbursement. So with that, I thank you for your time and be happy to address any questions.
Thanks, Kenny. Another very good presentation that you worked hard to cover. I'm going to start and ask a question that we discussed. I want to make sure everything's clear to the audience. So you use the term decision support, clinical decision support. I want to make sure that nobody, at least right now, is envisioning that when you say AI, that this is automated, that there's a slide, that there's no person involved and a diagnosis comes out. It was all there, but go over again exactly what's happening, where the current pathologist exists. At the moment, there is a shortage, but you're not replacing the pathologist right now. Make sure everybody is clear.
Yeah, thanks for that, Steve. And I think it's a great point where we really look at pathologists as our partners, and we look at these AI products we're developing as tools, as part of their tool belt to allow them to address and become more efficient the patient need. And it's in no way intended to replace. And so one tangible example would be with our colorectal cancer risk surveillance algorithm. The clinical workflow that we envision is really around, once all the slides have been digitized, running the AI algorithm batch-wise against all of those digital slides, so that when a pathologist or a team of pathologists comes in at the beginning of the day, the slides or the patient cases are prioritized based on risk. So those patients, those biopsies that have the highest risk sit on top of that work list, and they know to focus on those first, and those presumably will therefore lead to better patient outcomes overall when you think about the healthcare system.
I'm going to push you again. I'm not sure even I followed what you said. So a biopsy gets done, slide gets made, the pathologist looked at it, and then at the moment, it's not automated. There's software, and what does that help the pathologist do? So he or she looks at the slide, draws their conclusion. What is the software adding? Just spell it out for us.
Yeah, so the software will be able to detect where there are potential areas of cancer.
Okay.
But in addition to that, when we sort of think about the overall workflow, we can organize the cases based on severity. So those with the highest severity will go up to the top of the list, which the pathologist will therefore know to focus on those first. So we can organize the overall workflow for the day for the pathologist, in addition to detection.
Yeah. Okay. Jeff Hutchins, you want to ask your question, Jeff?
Sure, yes. Thank you. It was a great presentation. I was just wondering if you could expand a little bit more on the business model. You know, who buys your system? How do you get paid? And what are you thinking there?
Yeah, this is definitely an area where, you know, we're looking for further kind of guidance and discussion around. Right now, the way we're looking at this is from a payment or business model perspective. We see this as that viewer that we are developing, that will wrap around these AI algorithms, will serve as a platform. And we don't anticipate all institutions to want to adopt every single one of our AI products. They may want for colorectal and for kidney, for example. And so therefore, we are thinking about a pay-per-use model, where for every slide that it utilizes our AI algorithm for that particular disease type, there's a charge associated with it, $2 to $3, for example. And that sort of pay-per-use or pay-per-click, however you want to think of it, would tally up, and there'd be a charge based on that back to the healthcare system or the hospital.
Okay. Ahmad, you sort of had a comment and a question. You want to ask it, or you want me to read it? Go right ahead.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for the great presentation, Kenneth. I just have a question. With a packed competitors landscape, don't you think that there are substantial equivalents? And if yes, would this shorten the FDA process to below 1 year? I'm under the impression that you mentioned it would take up to 1 year on the timeline. Can you reflect on that, please?
Just to confirm, because I think the word blanked out, but I think you said FDA, right? You're talking about the regulatory timeline of 1 year, right?
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
Okay, got it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so we're just preparing a pre-sub right now for the colorectal algorithm. And depending on what that timeline looks like, we're sort of preparing ourselves that the process could be as short as 6 months, but could be as long as 12 months. And depending on what comes back in the feedback, and it may extend further. So at this point, I don't know what that true timeline is until we've had that meeting. But from what I've understood in speaking to individuals, a timeline from submission through to approval would be good to sort of budget 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, good question, good honest answer. Truth is, you don't know until it happens. All right, Mary Beth, ask your question.
Yes, hi. Thanks. Great presentation today.
Thank you.
Was wondering if you've seen some variability in the benefits of workflows in different institutions and pathologists who may approach how they go about interpreting results, and will that affect your go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's something that so there's two parts to it. The first part is of the institutions, because this has been deployed across 24 institutions thus far in some of the trial data. And what we have seen is that the algorithm itself is fairly robust. And in addition to that, it actually improved reproducibility over and above manual reads by 7%. So it actually, not only does it have a high accuracy, but it improved the variability, or I guess you would say decreased the variability between pathologists by 7%. Now, with that said, I think moving and expanding the studies to other institutions where it's a little bit more out in the open, we're obviously not at that stage. Those 24 institutions was more of a sort of controlled environment, if you will. I think we'll still sort of need to be able to test that further. The one piece around the actual technology itself to address some of the variability is it's not dependent on, for example, some of the staining intensities or what have you, that you see variability between diagnostic labs. Instead, it's based on the underlying cellular and tissue architecture or morphology. So that, based on biology, is just more consistent between institutions. So we don't expect any sort of effects from overstaining or what have you as a result of differing lab techniques to impact the results in that regard.
Thank you.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. Tom Vogelsang, want to ask your Vogelsong? Sorry. You there, Tom? Then I will-
Yes, hi, just getting
Hi.
off mute. Yeah, there's so many competitors you showed on your competition chart, and I've seen many people using digital pathology and machine learning that are expanding their applications. What is it that makes you stand out from all those other competitors?
Yeah, I think the areas we are focused on, and again, I sort of view this from two different perspectives. The algorithms that we are focused on are certainly more distinct, especially relative to some of the larger players, where they are focused on breast and prostate, lung in one particular case. But even within lung, for example, just to use that as an example, I view it very similar to, for example, the pharmaceutical industry, where there isn't just one lung cancer drug that treats everything. There's many. And I see AI algorithms and the evolution of it being very much the same way. When you think about the lung algorithm being developed by one of our larger competitors, it's very much focused on one particular marker which has application within the pharmaceutical or drug development market. Ours is completely different. Even though it's within the same disease area of lung, we're specifically focused around clinical diagnostic information around lung cancer detection and classification. I also see down the road of the marrying or the collaboration between multiple different lung AI algorithms into a work stream as well. So I think for me, my opinion is it's still early days, but I think multiple competitors or multiple companies can exist within each disease type, much like in the pharmaceutical space.
Great. Thanks, Kenny. Well, it is 1:21, so we're 1 minute over. So I want to thank everyone for their participation today. This, once again, this is very exhilarating program, and everybody did their job well. So I want to thank Consul General David Usher again with a final welcome to him, and thanks the entire staff from the Consulate General. I want to thank Sam and all of her colleagues at Matter. Sam, I want to personally commend Sam. She's done just an enormous job. She's become very skilled at this. She could do this whole thing on her own. So thank you, Sam. I want to thank the presenters for being good listeners, being coachable, giving terrific presentations, being crisp with the Q&A. And lastly, I want to thank the audience and the mentors. We had at our high, we had well over 70 people in attendance. So thanks for your questions. My final plea to you, please sign up. I hope many of you sign up for many of these. Sam's going to wrap up here and give you the details and prioritize them. And we will appreciate your joining the teams and coaching these teams for the next 6 months. So thanks, everyone. This is a terrific day. We look forward to next year in person with plenty of beer for everyone. Sam?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dr. Gould. And I've only heard about the Canadian beer in passing. That predates me at Matter. So hoping for next year, fingers crossed. But just want to echo everything Steve said to our 4 presenters. Thank you so much for the time and effort you put in the last few weeks. Your presentations today were all super polished and really appreciate that. To the mentors, thank you for the amazing questions and engaging Q&A. I know it's not easy to replicate that in a virtual environment, but I really appreciate you all willing to come off mute, willing to ask questions, all of that. It really makes it as close to in person as we can get. And Dr. Gould, thank you again. You're an amazing MC as always. Thank you for all your knowledge and expertise that you provided over the last few weeks.